Good afternoon to you. Mark Sett with HurricaneTrack.com here. It's Monday, the 21st of February, 2022, and you've tuned into the off-season version now of the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. Only 100 days left that I can legitimately call it that. I might change my mind and call it the regular Hurricane Outlook and Discussion in May. You never know. But yeah, we have 100 days left until the start of the hurricane season, so it's still off-season time, and we will talk about a few things related to the upcoming hurricane season, again presented there in nice bold red letters for you, now only 100 days away. Remember, hurricane season is 6 months long, and then the off season is also 6 months long. A lot of people don't realize that. June through November is the official hurricane season for the Atlantic, although in recent years it has started earlier. At least Mother Nature has. We've had storms forming in May. No hurricanes in May as of late. We usually get those in other weird times like January. Remember Hurricane Alex, which, by the way, is the first name on this year's list. We're using the same list that we used in 2004, and it gets recycled every 6 years from there. So you do the math, all right? So Alex and Bonnie and so forth and so on for this year. We'll talk about that later on. But yep, 100 days away until hurricane season starts. But it's always hurricane season somewhere. And here from the Tropical Cyclones page at the University of Wisconsin site here, their Cooperative Institute for Meteorological Satellite Studies, we do have a cyclone, Imnati, I guess that's how you pronounce that, just off of Madagascar. And we go to their Twitter page and see a nice animation here. Closing in on Madagascar as a Category 3 equivalent hurricane, and it's the same thing as a hurricane. A cyclone, a typhoon, and a hurricane are all the exact same meteorological phenomena. We just have different names for them depending on where in the world they happen to occur. So this one, it's turning clockwise. Why? It's not flipped. I don't have my computer or presentation flipped the wrong way. It's in the southern hemisphere. And when they are south of the equator, our cyclones spin clockwise. It's just the way it is. Physics, all right? So this is headed for Madagascar, one in a series. They've had several this year, and a big part of that is because the Madden-Julian Oscillation, the MJO, has basically been stuck over here in the Indian Ocean, and that is where you get a lot of rising motion that helps to foster the development of systems such as that cyclone. So moving on to the Atlantic Basin real quick, just wanted to point out, nice and quiet as you would expect in February. I mean, look, it's February 21st. It's not August 21st. So the deep tropics down here, free and clear of any deep convection. Strong upper level winds. You can see that coming off South America and the southwest part of the tropical Atlantic. Your trades coming through nice and brisk through the Caribbean. No organized areas of showers or thunderstorms right now, which is exactly what we would expect for the latter part of February. Lower 48 weather, very active. We'll get to that in just a little while. That's usually the focus of what we talk about on these off-season discussions. But there's always something to talk about, and one of those will be this puzzle piece right here. Sea surface temperature anomalies, the departures from the long-term averages. The Atlantic positive right now for development, sea surface temperature-wise, at least the anomalies, and the Pacific negative for development in that area. Another way to look at it, this is favoring Atlantic hurricane activity if, and that is a big if because we don't know for sure, this were to hold, and let's say the calendar there did say, this is always a day behind, that little graphic up there says 20th of February. If it was the 20th of August, which is typically the very beginning of the rapid ramp up in seasonal activity, this would be a very favorable look for that time frame. But it's not August, it's the end of February, so we will have to see if this pattern holds. And a big key to that is this right here. Now I'm going to refresh this in just a moment so that it will animate. This is a slice basically through the Pacific along the equatorial region. That is why it says equatorial temperature anomaly. And this went through the 17th of February, so this is pretty recent. And basically this is a slice right through here, way on off the chart, way off to about, 160 degrees, 120 degrees east longitude, 80 west to 120 east. So it's a giant cut in the ocean, if you will, looking down, looking in the vertical. This is the surface of the ocean here, and this is 450 meters deep over here, and this is a vertical section of it. And we see these warm areas right here, these blobs of subsurface warm anomalies. And then you've got the bluish colors up in here. Those are your colder anomalies. Now, how has this changed over time? Well, let's refresh it. You'll see how things have moved. Earlier in the year, this very large warm pool had a lot of people talking, oh boy, here we go. Going to get that El Nino coming, and it was spreading across, and then it's just starting to weaken. You know, it's like, well, maybe not. There's just not a big reinforcing mechanism to drive these warm areas of western Pacific waters downward to create these subsurface pools of warmth and then shift them eastward. It's a very complicated mechanism. It's just not there yet. Doesn't mean it can't be, but so far the La Nina is trying to hold on, albeit much weaker. We are moderating towards a warmer look overall, but this does not suggest to me just yet that El Nino is on the way. The SOI is not there. I didn't pull that up. Maybe I should have, but the SOI, the Southern Oscillation Index, the measurement of pressure between Tahiti and Darwin, Darwin, of course, being in Australia, it is still strongly positive right now. All the indices are strongly positive, and that is a big indicator that the pressure pattern across the Pacific is still one that generally favors easterly winds blowing across the tropical Pacific, keeping the La Nina more or less at status quo and not allowing that El Nino pattern where you got more westerly winds coming across, moving that warm Pacific water from west to east. That's not in place yet. And as a result, models that are run daily, such as the CFS V2 here that I like to show you once a week, this is still strongly holding on to that. I mean, look, it's 1 degree Celsius. That's firm La Nina as we get through the rest of the year. I'll tell you what, if we get an El Nino this year, this right here will just like bust big time. Like, this will be an awful, awful forecast even for February 21st. You know what I mean? And I know it changes every day, and it's getting new data in, and you can't just come along and go, well, it's a terrible model. We're talking months out into the time frame here. I mean, look at what we're looking at. April, that's the next chunk coming up. That makes sense. And then July and October. So these are some pretty distant time frames, but still, most of the members there, you can see the blue ones are the most recent. Some of them are, look at these. These are really strongly suggesting La Nina. A few of them up here a little warmer. One model, one set of models in the ensembles, you know, the CFS V2. We can compare that with the Columbia Climate School here, the International Research Institute. They work with the Climate Prediction Center. That's why it says IRI-CPC. This is updated February 18th, so it's just a few days old, and their latest look suggesting only, and this is the time frame we're looking at right there, starting to slide closer in to the present, which is on the left side. This is where we are now. This is where we're headed. You know, the time goes farther out into the future on the right-hand side. Okay, so here we are, August, September, October. Neutral is favored. La Nina out ahead of El Nino conditions by a pretty good margin. So no screaming evidence of an El Nino just yet. We're still early on. Got to make that clear. And we can even look at it on their little chart here, that once we get to this time frame, that's the most important, August, September, October, the peak of the hurricane season, only a 22% probability of having El Nino. That's pretty low. La Nina 29, so it's not that high. Neutral is just about break even. So we shall see another month, and I think we're going to really start to get some clues here. We'll see, and of course we will. We'll be closer. It's not like I figured out something incredibly, that nobody else did. It just makes sense, right? But we get to monitor all of that through these different tools here, and I'll show you that over the coming weeks. All right? All right, so let's move along now to lower 48 weather. Holy cow! Look at that map. You know spring is coming because we've got the winter storm and winter weather advisory colors all through here, combined and really contrasting with these greens in here, which is snow melt and flooding issues, hydrologic concerns, and you know what's going to be in the middle. It's just not showing up just yet because it's still early enough in the day, and it's February, and that is severe weather. Severe weather kind of separates these two areas. So yes, lower 48 weather, it's pretty active out there. That red that you see in parts of the Dakotas there, and what is that, North Dakota, and just extreme western Minnesota. Blizzard conditions again. There's been some remarkable video coming out of the Red River Valley and some other areas in the Dakotas these last couple of weeks or so. It makes me jealous. I don't know, man. It's nice in the office. It's nice outside in the mid-60s here in southeast North Carolina, but 70-mile-an-hour ground wind and blowing snow, for maybe an hour to just kind of experience that, maybe measure it with an anemometer. That's the weather geek. I can't help it. If I could just transport out there, experience it, and then transport back to the warmth here, the relative warmth of southeast North Carolina, I would take it. Anyway, so that's the lower 48 weather setup. A lot of active weather going on from our friends out west. Finally, some precip coming in the form of mountain snows, maybe some valley rains. Not a lot, but you'll take whatever you can get. And then again, these greens here, flooding concerns from a combination of melting snow, ice jams, and a little bit in the way of too much heavy rainfall. All right, so let's look at the GFS here over the next week or so. And courtesy of Tropical Tidbits, move this out into time. You see what happens. Winter storm out west, not giant, but enough so that Nevada, Utah, the Wasatch, parts of the Spring Mountains near Pahrump and Vegas, northwest Arizona, southern Cal, going to get some rain even maybe down to San Diego, northern Mexico. Yeah, just a little bit of precip. You can take anything you can get, build that watershed up, especially as we get towards spring and summer when it's going to be dry. You need what you can get right now. This is 72 hours out, so a little bit of snow and ice and mixed precip in the nation's midsection, maybe some severe weather. We'll look at that from the SPC site in just a moment. 96 hours out, that's day 4. Pretty heavy rain moving up through parts of the Ohio Valley and some snows on the north side. Still enough cold air around as we round out February. There's day 5. Hey, day 5, almost no precip in the lower 48 there. Just a few areas according to the GFS for today. That'd be a pretty quiet day this coming Saturday. No weather to speak of. Just sunny, sunny, sunny for the most part. Just a little bit of snow in Colorado. Maybe a couple rain showers in Arkansas, as you can see there. Let's move it on out anyway. By day 6, maybe a little bit of cold air draining down on the east side of the Rockies there. That's a pretty good trough. Look at that. You can see it outlined here with these heights in the atmosphere. 1043 millibar surface high. Wow. The thicknesses here is what I'm also trying to say. That's a pretty good trough out on the eastern part, east of the Rockies there. Winter is not done yet. We're going to start off March, it looks like, cold in the east, which, whatever. Look at that. That is a sharp trough. In fact, let me just see what it looks like at 500 millibars real quick. Where is it? That's the one that I want. Yep. Yeah, that's a pretty good trough. And if we just move this back and then out into time, you see it's pretty quick, though. It doesn't hang around, and there's no big storm showing up just yet from the modeling. We're out more than a week into time, and then finally we get more of a zonal, a little bit more zonal. It's a little bit wavy, but it's certainly less of a longitudinal trough than that right there. That's a pretty sharp trough. All right, so the next week or so, bottom line, going to be pretty active with some severe weather. So let me get rid of the graphics there, the telestration, and let's move over to the Storm Prediction Center. Now let's get rid of me so you can see what we're looking at. So today, day 1, some severe weather, slight risk of it in parts of the plains, Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, slight risk in there. Look at the categories, 5% tornado. That's enough to get your attention, I would hope. We're getting there. We're getting close to severe weather season in earnest. Any day of the week it could be severe weather season if the right ingredients are there. But we're getting closer to when this is a higher probability overall, climatologically speaking. The wind threat, pretty high, 15%. That's not zero, that's for sure. And then the hail threat, also 15%. Large hail in those areas, so just be aware of that. And And then let's move on out to tomorrow. That shifts to the east. And all that storminess coming in out west, the instability, thunder snow in some areas, the southwest part of Utah, St. George and vicinity, more in the Wasatch Range, Cedar City in that area. Not quite to St. George. That's way down in the southwest corner. Washington County, I think that is. But boy, this is going to be really neat out there. Social media, I'm sure. There's a few storm chasers out there. We'll see what they come up with. Really interesting weather in that part of the country. Anyway, you can tell I get distracted by shiny objects, and lightning can be shiny, right? Lots of lightning, though, tomorrow. Well, pretty good amount of it anyway, in parts of the Mississippi Valley. And again, you can look at the tornado threat for tomorrow. Substantial enough to really get your attention there, especially that this is not your typical area where you can see these thunderstorms coming from far away like you can in the traditional Tornado Alley areas out here, for example. This is a lot harder, and it might be more towards dark. These nighttime tornado outbreaks can be much more problematic. So pay attention tomorrow, then finally into day 3. Just a general thunderstorm threat overall. Nothing that really shows up as being too concerning. But again, reminder, we're getting towards severe weather season. Climatologically, the Gulf is still pretty warm, pumping in that moist, unstable air. The cold air coming down from Canada, the jet stream involved. The dynamics are there that we're going to start to see more and more severe weather outbreaks as we go forward, and they will become more amped up as we get closer to spring and into spring, as you know. So we'll be tracking that. And in fact, and I'll talk about this later on in more detail, we will be planning an expedition out here to the alley somewhere. Don't know exactly where. Could be northwest Texas, you never know. We did it last year to some degree. This year, we're going full on, full measure. Last year was half measure, testing some stuff, some ideas. This year, we're going full measure. It's going to be incredible. But that's a story for another day. And it's related to this. We're funding it all through our Patreon. I'm really wanting to promote this new level that we've created. The $1 one, sold it out, not doing that one anymore. We've added Discord to all of our levels, starting from $4 and up. So jump in on Patreon, patreon.com/HurricaneTrack, and you can be a part of what we're doing. Look, we got over, 600 people right now, almost 700 that have hung on in the off-season. And we do a lot of stuff together, especially the Discord. I am impressed with how robust it is. I am very glad our back-end team kept telling me, Mark, you got to trust the Discord. It's really cool. And we've been using it a lot. So if you're familiar with, especially in the gaming world, with Discord, I finally embraced it, and we finally offer it on the $4 level and up on Patreon. So get the Patreon app, and or go to patreon.com, search HurricaneTrack, and join our crowdfunding effort and be a part of what we're doing, quite literally. It's pretty incredible, and we're going to be doing a lot with it as we get into the spring. And of course, the upcoming hurricane season now 100 days away. So with it being 100 days away, I can't leave you without at least giving you a little bit of advice. What would I be doing 100 days outside of hurricane season? Well, it's 100 days, and what will I be doing? Basically just generally thinking about it. If you've kind of shunted it and said, I don't care about hurricanes right now, there's enough going on in the world, and there certainly is. It's just a good reminder. Just at least bring it back to the front burner and put that burner on low. You know what I mean? Don't ignore it. Don't get mad at me that it's 100 days till hurricane season. How dare you remind me? We have to face it. We got to be ready and just think about it. Understand your risk. If you've moved into the region recently, if you've moved from somewhere where you were at lower risk to an area of higher risk, understand your risk. That is the number one thing you can do. What am I vulnerable to? What could hurt me? What could harm me physically, financially, my house, my family, my business? That's what you need to investigate. That's the first step, is know your vulnerability to the hazards. Storm surge being the most, deadly hazard, because water will kill you. I mean, it will. Freshwater flooding, too. That could be a big problem. Will I flood? What are the wind hazards for my area? If I'm in South Florida, that's obvious. I could get hit by a Category 5 hurricane. That's possible. Farther north, the Carolinas, New England, whatever, yes, you can still get some strong hurricanes, but your wind hazard storm surge hazard is not as great depending on where you are. Again, this is all about you. This is when you get to be selfish. You know, the old expression, when you're on the airplane, they say put on your mask before assisting others. This is the time for you to say, all right, me, what am I going to do about this upcoming hurricane season that I might not have done in recent years? You got 100 days to figure it out, maybe longer, we'll see, hopefully, right? But it's 100 days away. It's time to start thinking about it. Not to worry, not to panic, not to hype it up, but accept it. We live in an area where we get hurricanes. Let's be ready for it, and we'll help you do that on our end as well. All right? All right. Have a good rest of your Monday and a great rest of your week. That's it from me. I'm done for the day. I am Mark Seth, HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks as always for tuning in. I'll talk to you again next week.